Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first Planning and Development Committee meeting of 2020. Before we start on our business, we'd like to recognize our colleague, Harkirat Singh. It's his birthday today, so we just want to wish him all the best and just give him... it shows his dedication to his work that he's with here. He's with us tonight, so welcome. So we're right now, so I believe all members of the committee are present, yes, and we're right now at the approval of the agenda. I will ask the city clerk to review the changes for today's agenda since its publication.
Mr. Chair, members of committee, members of staff, and the public watching or attending today's meeting, these are the changes to tonight's agenda. In terms of the delegations 5.1 on tonight's agenda on Pigeon Coop setback requirements, there is the report 10.1, which was considered and deferred at the last Planning and Development Committee meeting of December 2nd, 2019. There are, at this point, 4 delegation requests that are shown on the screen. The first was posted with the agenda. The second, third, and fourth have been added since the agenda was published. As well, in regard to Delegation 5.2 regarding master plans and development review timelines, there is a presentation that was published online on the city's website today in regard to that delegation. And then moving on, there are 13 pieces of original correspondence from the December 2nd Planning and Development Committee meeting regarding the zoning bylaw amendment for Pigeon Coop setback requirements. And since the publication of the agenda, there has been an additional 8 pieces of correspondence which have been posted online for members to review regarding this matter. And Mr. Chair, those are the changes.
Thank you, City Clerk. Members of the committee, are there any changes, additions, or deletions? I see nobody on the board. Can I get a mover of the agenda as outlined by our City Clerk? Moved by Councillor Williams. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? I see nobody. Thank you. The clerk will note it. The clerk, oh, Councillor Vicente.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question to planning staff. When in your report you make a point of the Queen Street area on your maps, you also include the Main Street, sorry, the Queen Street area. You also include the Main Street DPS area, but we're not making any decisions today that affect the Main Street DPS. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that is correct, Council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your abundance of caution. Well done. And so we will note. Now we go to our consent agenda. We only have 2 items in consent. Anyone wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? No. Can I? Oh, Councillor Paleshi.
13.1, Mr. Chair, please.
Okay, so noted. 13.1 has been removed from consent agenda. Can I get a motion to move the consent agenda as noted? Moved by Councillor Fortini. All in favor? Carried. That carries. We go on now to our statutory public meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to hear a presentation regarding 499 Main Street South? Okay, I see there are people. So at this time, I would invite our staff person, Mr. Vandenberg, to come and do a presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee members, and members of the public. My name is David Vandenberg. I'm a manager in the Development Services section of the Planning Department, and I will be presenting information for the public meeting on the proposed redevelopment of the Shoppers World Mall. The purpose of this public meeting is to provide information to the public on the application and to seek feedback on the development proposal. First, the property is the Shoppers World Mall. It's located at 499 Main Street South on the northwest corner of Steeles and Main Street South. The property is in Ward 3. The site is 21.5 hectares in area and 53 acres. The applicant is requesting a zoning bylaw amendment and approval of a draft plan of subdivision to permit the redevelopment of the Shoppers World Mall for a mixed-use development with residential, retail, office, and institutional/community uses. Just a note as far as the public meeting notice, it was provided by direct mail to all property owners within 240 meters of the site per city's standard procedures, and the map on the screen shows the extent of the mailing. This slide shows a bird's eye view of the property. It is a view from the south looking towards the north. In the center, you'll see the mall, and then nearby and surrounding it, you can see at the corner of, to the southeast, at the corner of Steeles and Main is the Gateway Transit Terminal, as well as the proposed, this is also the location of the proposed LRT stop along here, Ontario. And to the west, you can see Caniff Park, as well as the existing high-density development there. And then in the surrounding areas, you can see the neighborhoods and the commercial uses that surround this property. This slide shows the concept plan for the redevelopment proposal, which proposes the transformation over time of the site to a mixed-use urban community with buildings ranging from 3 to 28 stories. Some of the details of the proposal are, there are approximately 5,000 dwelling units proposed, primarily consisting of apartment dwellings, but also including townhouse dwellings on the north part of the site. There's a mix of rental and condominium housing tenure. It's proposed to be approximately 480,000 square feet of retail space, generally on the first floor of the buildings. And if you look carefully at the plan, you can see there's a pink line at some of the base of the buildings, and that's generally where the retail is going. There is 383,000 square feet of office uses proposed, and 88,000 square feet of community and institutional uses. Also, as part of this development is a system of new interconnected public spaces and parks, including an extension of Caniff Park, a linear park along the proposed extension of Bartley Bowl, so running through the center of the site, and public spaces connecting the proposed development with the Gateway Transit Terminal and the planned LRT stop on here, Ontario. Part of this proposal also includes a community hub proposed to be located adjacent to Caniff Park. As well, there is a proposed system of new public and private streets, including a street connecting Mill Street to Lancashire Lane, and an extension of Bartley Bowl Parkway into the site, as well as a number of other roads. The total density, which is measured typically with us as a floor space index, which is the ratio of building area to site area, is 2.3 FSI. So obviously, as a development of the size, it will be phased in over time. The next few slides show renderings of the proposed development. On the first one is a view from the north, from the Steeles and Lancashire intersection, so on the west of the site. The two buildings on the left part of my left part of the screen are proposed to be the phase 1 buildings, and the first one's built in the development if approved. The next slide is a view looking northwest from the existing Gateway Transit Terminal, and it shows a new public space we propose as part of that area. This slide shows the stacked townhouses that are proposed at the north part of the site, well as the courtyard amenity spaces that are typically scattered throughout the development. This slide shows the proposed expansion of Caniff Park, as well as the road running north-south through the site. And finally, we have a rendering of the proposed view from the Main and Bartley Bowl intersection, another important entrance to the proposed development. So in the next half of my presentation, I will be talking about the planning framework for this property. First, in the 2040 vision, the Shoppersville site is within the area identified as Uptown in the 2040 vision. Uptown is to be a new urban core for the city, as detailed in the vision, is a major new transit-oriented work-live civic core for business, commerce, leisure, and tourism. The redeveloped Shoppers World Mall is identified in the vision as becoming the western anchor of Uptown, and its redevelopment is seen as a catalyst for the transformation of this part of Brampton. In the official plan, the subject lands are designated as regional retail, and they're also located on a primary intensification corridor and within a gateway mobility hub. Regional retail sites are intended to be planned as large-scale multi-purpose centers offering a diverse range of retail, service, community, public, and institutional and recreational uses. Mobility hubs and intensification corridors are intended to be a focus of intensification and higher density development and are focused along transit infrastructure. An amendment to the official plan is not required for the application. As far as the secondary plan, the lands are designated as regional commercial in the Hurontario Main Corridor Secondary Plan, which was prepared in conjunction with the planning for the Hurontario LRT. The planning vision for the site as described in the plan is to redevelop Shoppers World Brampton into a more vibrant, mixed-use, transit-oriented destination. Retail uses will be encouraged to remain in the area to help create a major shopping node that will be pedestrian and transit-focused. However, new higher density building forms will be encouraged to develop in order to support the above noted vision. The maximum density proposed or identified in the secondary plan for the southern half of the site is a floor space index, which is the ratio of floor area to site area, and for that part is an FSI of 4.0, and for the north, the maximum is a floor space index of 3.0. And as you recall, the density being proposed in the application is 2.3. The maximum building height is 78 meters or 25 stories. The secondary plan does note that proposals for increased density or building height higher than the maximum identified can be approved through a zoning and bylaw amendment process rather than requiring an official plan amendment. So an amendment to the secondary plan is not required for the proposed development. For the zoning is currently commercial 3 in their zoning bylaw. This zone permits a range of commercial uses, really reflecting the existing mall use on the site currently. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required for the new development proposal to establish the permissions for the mixed uses and the new proposed built form. So as part of the application, we have identified a number of issues that we'll be working with the applicant on. Some of these are how to best integrate the proposed development with the surrounding community and create a well laid out development in terms of site layout and design, including matters such as park and street configuration and the built form on the site. 2, establishing the necessary community infrastructure such as parks, schools, recreational spaces, libraries needed for the development of the scale. 3, providing an appropriate balance of residential, retail, employment, and institutional uses, as well as a variety of housing types and tenures. And 4, ensuring that the development is seamlessly integrated with existing and planned transit infrastructure. And lastly, given that the redevelopment will be phased, ensuring that each phase is functional and achieves the overall principles for the redevelopment. This slide shows where we are in the application review process. So we are right now at the public meeting stage where committee members and staff are here to listen to any feedback from residents. In addition to this meeting, I would note that the applicant has invited the public to 2 meetings outside of the statutory process, and the first of those was held in June of last year and the second in October. So after tonight's meeting, the comments received from the technical review by city departments and other agency, as well as matters raised at tonight's meeting through the public delegations, will be reviewed and evaluated. And I would note if people prefer or are comfortable to provide comments in writing, they're very welcome to do so, and they can send them to me by either email or letter. And just on the last slide, some last notes of additional information. So this report and presentation is located on our website. And I would note that before we go to the recommendation report, staff will contact everyone, provide information on when that's happening to everyone who provide comments or provides their contact information. So my information is on the screen as well as the applicant's information. And this, as noted, this will be on our website. So if you have any comments and want to provide them in writing, you can send those directly to me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And per usual, if you can't feel comfortable writing staff, Councillor Bowman or Councillor Maduro is more than happy. Your two fund councillors are there to pass on any questions or comments to staff regarding this project. At this time, committee, if there's anyone in the public who would like to come forward and ask any questions or state any comments, feel free to come forward. Oh, the applicant would like to delegate, so I'd invite the applicant at this time to come forward. Is the applicant here? Yes. Hi, welcome. If you can just state your name for record for everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry? I'm going to say it's media. Okay, that's it. Perfect. I'm Anna Madeira. I'm with Quadrangle Architects, and with me today is Shonda Wang. She's with SVN. We've assembled, along with RioCan, a team to deliver the project that was just described to you by David. So Quadrangle is the architect, along with SVN, who's contributing to the design as well of the site. BA Group is our traffic engineer, and Counterpoint are our civil engineers. So Shonda and I are representing Quadrangle and SVN today. So David did a really great job, I think, of outlining the project and where it's at today. We'd just like to, I think, give you a little bit more information about the development and what you can expect to see coming on this site. So you'll know the site very well today. David had a great picture of the existing mall. And what we're looking at is how we're going to take that mall and the surrounding parking lot and transform it into a beautiful neighborhood that is pedestrian friendly and well connected with the surrounding neighborhoods. So when we came to this site, we started to look at some components and how we would pull together what we needed to do to deliver a great design. So the first thing we looked at was the street networks. So what's important here is the connections to the existing community. So you'll see in red the public streets, the proposed public streets that connect to signalized intersections and well-integrated streets in the community. And then in blue are private roads, and in the dotted blue are, again, private roads that are of a smaller scale. So we also looked at the scale of the streets to ensure there was some variety in what we were providing across the site so that you get a sense of neighborhood as you walk through. And in addition to that, we looked at curving the roads ever so slightly just so to slow down the experience of the internal workings of the site. This slide speaks to the density on the site and where we can expect to see height. So what we've done is we've focused the height of the residential buildings on the main streets. So facing Steeles and Main is where you're going to get the higher buildings. I believe we said 28 stories was the highest. And then the height steps down to the adjacent neighborhood along Charleroi Boulevard, where we have the smaller single-family homes on the other side of the street. So we have a format that is more like townhouses and is probably 2 or 3 stories in height. And we have quite a few uses on the site to support the community that's going to grow here. So there will be several types of retail. We focused the large format retail again on Main Street and along Steeles, where we have the taller buildings above those areas, and as well as where we have the transit on the corner. So we felt that those were good locations for the larger format retails. And then as you step into the site, the grain gets a little bit finer. So we have smaller scale retailers, we have community uses and commercial uses, all supporting the residential uses that we have on site. And another thing that David mentioned was our network of parks. So you'll see the green on the screen. We have used different scales of parks throughout the site to support, again, the residential communities surrounding them, and to have different uses. So we have very big public parks as well as smaller, what we're calling pocket parks, which are integrated into the smaller housing developments. And then as we look at this site and how it's going to unfold over time, what we've done is we've taken it and we've split it into more digestible pieces where we can talk about key moments and key characters of different areas of the site, so that as it's developed and as these areas unfold, they're not only supportable as neighborhoods on their own, they will form a network of neighborhoods across the site as the project is complete. So this is the character area that we're calling the gateway. So along Steeles, this will be likely the first part of the development that's complete. So we're looking at this as an opportunity for some really great iconic residential buildings that will sit on podiums that are connected to the street with retail. So great activity opening the site up, and really is the kind of initial welcome into the site from Steeles. And then this area we're calling the transit hub. So this is where the bus terminal is on the corner. And what we've done here is we've opened up that corner into the site through the use of a great public plaza. So that plaza is another one of the public open spaces that we will have that will connect through from that corner into the heart of the site and will really draw people in. We know it's a very busy, active corner, so it'll be supported by some great residential use as well as the large format retail at grade. And then another one of our entrances is off of Main Street. So this is what we're calling a bosque. So it's more of a urban typology park where we have some trees that are sitting on an urban plaza. And it forms a green connection that connects to the park across the road and connects all the way through the site. Shonda's going to be talking a little bit more about parks and green spaces, so I won't get into too much detail about that. And then as we move into the center of the site, the scale steps down, and we have finer grain retail. This is where we have our roads are more curved, and the retail units are smaller, giving a much more pedestrian scale to the internal workings of the site. And really at the heart of the site is a very key moment, which is where we make a connection to Kneff Park. So Kneff Park will extend down to the site, creating quite a broad civic park in the middle of our site. And flanking that, we'll have some great commercial uses as well as a community use adjacent to that as well. All having great connections to the park and creating a really nice, active streetscape around that green space. And then we get to the quieter part of the site, which is where we step down to the 2- and 3-story units. And this is where the scale of the residential units changes. So one of the great things about having such a wide range of urban typologies is that we have quite a good variety of the type of units that we can have on the site as well. So this, not only will the scale of the buildings change, there will be a good healthy mix of residential units on the site as well. Now I'm going to turn over to Shonda so she can tell you a little bit more about the urban design and landscape.
Thanks, Anna. So we saw David present this graphic and we thought it would be important to bring back up because it's a really nice summary diagram, if you will, of all of the components of the site that Anna spoke to. And just if we think about the stage that we're at in developing a master plan that forms the basis for the rezoning submission that we just submitted on behalf of RioCan, this is important because it sets the framework for some really important moments and also connections for various areas of the site. I'll just very briefly highlight a few parts about this diagram. You can see that in the circles that are highlighted around the site, there are multiple entryways, really important entry points physically bringing you into the site in all different modes, and that means by car or by foot or by bike, even by transit. As you come to and from the site, there are connections from the community residential areas. There are community from the main streets, both Main and also Steeles as really important streets around here, and also from the existing public park. And those are interconnected, you can see, through a series of key connections, or what we call spines, that lead from one part of the community to another. So there are always really important views and moments into the site so that it's very clear where you're heading to and from, whether to the community heart that Anna was speaking to, or to transit, or some of the residential areas. We spent quite a bit of time thinking about the landscape and how that could be a defining feature for setting the conditions for this new reconception, really, of Shoppers World. And just thinking about where we are and where we're situated, we're at a really interesting part at the crest of two water sources in terms of the Credit River and the Humber River, and the tributaries of the Etobicoke Creek and Fletcher's Creek that run in and around the site. So we spent quite a bit of time thinking about how through the landscape and the public realm we could make some beautiful connections to set up the conditions for great spaces, but also value for the community. Here you see a diagram of different types of open spaces related to the river ecology, including the river, wetlands, upland forests, meadows, all the things that you would find naturally associated with river ecologies. And we thought this would be a really nice way to bring some themes about that river idea into the particular site. And you can see even some ideas about how you can program those types of spaces or treat them in different kinds of ways through both soft and hard landscaping. And then when you play with that kit of parts, if you will, and lay those out across the site and think carefully about what you're interfacing with, the types of buildings and uses, we think you come up with a really nice dynamic way of stitching the site back together into its broader context. And finally, just thinking about the reasons we're here in the first place, talking about all the opportunities that come with the redevelopment of Shoppers World, it's really clear that the investments that are happening in transit, both with the Hurontario LRT at the doorstep of Shoppers World by 2024, and ongoing thinking and planning for higher order transit in and around the site, we thought this would be an important image to end on, to highlight how this site is really about bringing the types of uses that we could see together to take advantage of the transit investments that are being made to really activate the space and really restoring the public realm as an important part of that. So thanks very much for your attention today.
Okay, thank you. At this time, if there's any members in the audience that would like to come forward, you have 5 minutes to ask any questions or make any comments. You can come forward and sign in after. State your name for public record, and you got 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is Sylvia. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I live at Steeles and Kennedy, so this is pretty close to where I am. For the past couple of years, I've been a heavy user of Brampton Transit and Gateway Terminals, where all of the stuff routes through for that. I was there for the first meeting, and that the applicant held, not related to this process, or the official process, and I thought it was quite good. I didn't know about the second one. The city's, I understand that in general, the city doesn't coordinate when it's private meetings, but it's a case of, if you look at our 2040 plan, this is basically the centerpiece for Uptown, where we're looking at putting 80,000 people and 53,000 jobs in addition to what's currently there. So this is kind of a special project that needs a bit more attention to it. And as I look at how many people are here, what was the last time Brampton has had a project of this scale? There should have been much better communication to the public going on about this. It's because of that population and jobs increase we're looking at, the transit facilities for here are not going to be adequate. This isn't the applicant's fault. They've done the projections and they show that they're still well within margins for what's here for their site. But if you actually want to do your 2040 vision, this transit terminal is not going to be large enough, so you're going to need to have Brampton Transit specifically look at that and come up with a plan for how you're going to be moving people around. Because if even half of these people are in cars, I mean, just imagine 30,000 extra cars in this area. That's not going to work very well. I've looked at their projected mode splits, and they're projecting 65 to 75% of retail trips, for example, to be by car, 80 to 85% for work, and 55 to 60% for residential. And based on what the city's currently doing, that probably isn't that surprising. But last year, this region of Peel put out its long-term transportation plan, which is supposed to take 25 to 30 years. The applicant, correct me if I'm wrong, but the plan for this is similar time frame. I believe it mentioned that in the documents. So I don't believe it's been integrated into provincial plans. So because of that, it's not really, I don't know if staff can really apply that to this. But you look at like walking, for example, their projections show very few people are actually going to walk to this site. Partially it's because there's nothing projected to be around it because of how cut up the whole plan is. And I would hope that the city will work with the applicant and also look at the area around it to make sure it all fits together. I think phase one by itself is pending staff comments. I'm sure they have stuff to say, lots of things. I personally think phase one looks good, but it's for the overall project. I think you're going to need to revise the transportation planning for this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and so duly noted by staff. Please come forward, state your name, please.
Hi, my name's Kim Thompson, Thompson without a P. I'm at 36 Bunting Drive. I live on McMurtry and Steeles, and there is a lot more development happening on the south side to come. So one of my concerns is about the Steeles number 15. There are already people, if there's going to be any coordination between how to get from one side of the road to the other, rather than just the intersections. There are already people who get off on one side, the south side, who are jaywalking in between. There's been one person killed doing that, trying to get to the transit. I think they should coordinate. I don't know how you manage this, but whether it's this responsibility or that person's responsibility, but I think some coordination in the transit, especially regarding that, should be done. Underground tunnels or bridges or something. There really has to be something. Second concern is wondering, no one has mentioned what kind of use the community center is going to have, whether it's all public or if it's certain, if it's sectored, or and along with that, are these the parkland going to be accessible for kids' playground equipment or a splash pad or something? There are going to be people, whether we think a perfect situation is that people will not have children, they do have children, and they do need places to go and play. I think the last question I had, which I just forgot. Anyways, I can write in. Is there a timeline on writing in?
So through Mr. Chairman, it's been identified by the applicant that they're hopeful that we'll be able to come back to committee and council with a recommendation report that's supportive of the application after our technical review, but sometime in the fall of 2020. So I would advise that residents that are wanting to write in to provide their comments on the application, that they do so in advance of then, obviously, but as soon as possible would be better, so that staff can consider those in all of our technical review.
So there's no date?
There's no date that staff can confirm at this point in time, Mr. Chairman, but the anticipation is that we'll be coming back with a recommendation report in fall of 2020.
And at that time? Or before that time?
Yeah, so usually the reason why, so it's around fall, but it's really up to the applicant. Once they get our comments and staff prepares a report, then that's kind of the time where staff expect will be sometimes in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just remember what the other thing was.
Sure.
Parking. No one has mentioned, are there, I know that it's supposed to be ambulatory situation, but the people will be coming to go to the retail. Where's the parking access?
Yeah, those are good points. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Please come forward. Yeah.
Hi, I'll be real quick. Jeff Thompson. I also live at McMurtry and Steeles, and I drive Steeles every night. I don't know how many of you people in front of me live around that area, but between 4 and 6 o'clock, it just crawls. And When you put a development like this in there, where are all those cars gonna go? And I know the development on the south side of us which is the extension of Malta, when they did that development, they only allowed 2/3 of a car per unit. That was what they were recommended. So that means that every third house doesn't have a car at all unless or park on the road. So we have way too many cars funneling through, and like I can say, just try driving across there between 4 and 6 o'clock at night now. That's all I got to say.
That's great. Thank you very much. So thank you for everyone for their comments. And if you do have additional comments, yeah, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to quickly identify for the residents that have come out tonight in interest of this application that, really, as per the standard protocol now, by way of the Development Services Division with all of our public meeting items, we do have all the supporting documents that the applicants have submitted through to us for our consideration with the applications available for residents review, available through the city's website. So if you do navigate through to public meeting on the city's website, you'll be able to find each of the documents that the staff have received with respect to all the various disciplines, traffic, parking and such, that you'll be able to review as well.
Okay, I thank you very much. And for those, again, who have additional comments or further questions, you can contact our manager of Planning and Development Services, Mr. David Vandenberg, or you can contact Councillor Bowman or myself if you have any questions or comments. But certainly, I think some of the comments around communication on such an important project, not only for the area but for the city of Brampton, we'll look at ways in where we can at least get the message out to residents to have further consideration regarding the documents and some of the implications around the surrounding area. So certainly we take that message. So thank you. Members of the committee, are there any questions or comments? No. Can I get a mover of staff report and the presentations and delegations? Moved by Councillor Bowman. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. We now go on to our delegations regarding the Pigeon Coop setback requirements. So at this time, there's an associated staff report, item 10.1, which was deferred from the December 2nd, and we have various pieces of correspondence identified as item 10.1. We'll just give a couple minutes so people can leave the room. Do we have a list of everyone delegated? Yeah. Okay, I have that. Okay, my apologies. Okay. Okay, at this time, I would invite Vineet Farwa to come forward. You have 5 minutes, and following we have?
Following Vernique is Agnieszka Prus, followed by Harpreet Greywall and Karen Deep Cambo.
Okay, so if you can come in line accordingly. Again, just state your name for public record.
Yes, my name is Vineet Farwaha. So good evening to everybody here. As you guys know, my name is Vineet Farwaha, and I'm here representing the Flying Tippler Club of North America, and I will be delegating in regards to item 10.1 on the agenda today. First and foremost, I would like to thank all of you for letting me speak on a matter that is very important to every single member of the Flying Tippler Club of North America. As you are all aware at this point, this club is an organization that consists of members who share in the hobby of racing pigeons. At the meeting in September, there was actually a discrepancy in regards to how many members of the public were actually present. The official report indicated that there were 12 members of the public in attendance. However, this was not the case. The meeting room was exceptionally crowded that evening, and due to this, many of the members of the public were forced to disperse to different sections of the room. Further, at the December meeting, the room was so full that none of the club members were able to even come upstairs, and they had to wait downstairs. I bring this up to highlight the importance that this matter holds to the members of the Flying Tippler Club, and I do not want all of you to think that this matter does not hold merit to members of the club, when in fact it most definitely does. Before I present our proposal, I would like to ask the members of the Flying Tippler Club to all stand up. Can everybody... As you can see, there are many members here today. There is also more members who wanted to be here, but they couldn't get out of their work obligations. I would like to stress once again that item 10.1 is very, very important to all of these members and so many more who, again, could not be here today. I guess they can all sit down now. Okay. The recommendation report that was released made a proposition in regards to amending section 10.3, sub M of the Brampton zoning bylaw. The amended bylaw reads as follows. Any accessory building or structure used in whole or in part for the purpose of keeping more than 2 pigeons shall be set back a minimum of 7.6 meters, which is 25 feet, from any dwelling unit, school, or any building used for residential, institutional, or commercial purposes, except where such dwelling or building is occupied exclusively by the property owner or keeper of the pigeons and other persons residing in the same dwelling unit. First of all, I would like to say that we greatly, greatly appreciate this amendment and cannot thank you enough for proposing such an accommodating change to this bylaw so that it better suits the needs of members of the club. The only thing that we would like to actually get amended is the minimum setback requirements pertaining to neighboring dwelling units. The Flying Tippler Club is sincerely requesting that section 10.3 sub M be amended to read as follows. Any accessory building or structure used in whole or in part for the purpose of keeping more than 2 pigeons shall be set back a minimum of 6.10 meters, which is 20 feet, from any neighboring dwelling unit, 7.9 meters, which is 25 feet, from any school or any building used for residential, institutional, or commercial purposes, except where such dwelling or building is occupied exclusively by the property owner or keeper of the pigeons and other persons residing in the same dwelling unit. An important matter that I know is of major concern to council members and Brampton residents is the keeping of actual pigeon coops. Cleanliness and hygiene is of the utmost importance to members of the club, and that is also one of the club's most prominent rules. It is unfortunate that I know there were new pictures that actually came into the meeting, I guess, today. It's unfortunate that these pictures are a part of the report because they don't even belong to a member of the Flying Tippler Club. The pictures that were sent in by 2 Brampton residents do not mirror what other pigeon coops look like in any way. One unkempt coop should not become the benchmark for measuring other coops that are all extremely clean and hygienic. Thus, I would like to reiterate that keeping coops neat and clean will remain a very high priority for all members of the club. I also want to talk a little bit about the social and economic benefits of racing pigeons, which obviously need to be housed in pigeon coops. The sport of racing pigeons brings people from all communities together. Professionally organized tournaments are coordinated to host not only the many pigeon racing clubs that exist in the Greater Toronto Area, but are open for the public to take part in as well. These tournaments hold such tremendous merit that people from all over the world make special trips just to take part in them. The Flying Tippler Club of North America has had guests from the United States, Europe, and even India come to these tournaments. These tournaments in turn promote tourism and further enforce our hospitality and generosity, making us a truly multicultural country. As these tourists make their way to Brampton and the Greater Toronto Area, our economy benefits from their presence as well. As people from other parts of the world visit Brampton and Canada to watch these races, money enters our economy and boosts the beautiful diversity that makes up our community. As you can see, the Flying Tippler Club's sport of racing pigeons has a major impact on Brampton and surrounding areas. This sport is growing exponentially, not only locally, but also worldwide. It would be wonderful if Brampton could become one of the leading supporters of pigeon racing. We understand that Brampton is one of the least restrictive municipalities when it comes to setting minimum setback requirements, as mentioned in the report. However, the amendment we are asking for is not significantly large. and feel that it can be accommodated without having any adverse impacts on society. We humbly request that you grant this amendment so that we can truly take Brampton's 2040 vision on living the mosaic and making it a reality to foster and promote respecting different lifestyles and sources of enjoyment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe our next speaker is Agnieszka Prus. Yes.
Good evening, chairmen, councillors, and members. I am against, unfortunately, building and allowing having pigeon coops in any residential area in city of Brampton. And I want to tell you how it is living beside people who have pigeon coop in their backyards. We have been living at this location since the contractor built houses on Duwala Crescent, and we have never seen any rats until one neighbor moved in. He brought some pigeons with him, and at first he placed them in a shed from previous owner. Then he expanded the shed and built a huge cage for these birds, even though according to city standards, the construction was too big for residential backyards. The pigeons are not only sitting inside both constructions, but also he releases them and teaches them how to fly around our neighborhood area. At first, he built one post for his pigeons to sit and land outside of the cage, as high as approximately 5 to 7 meters. But at the end of the last summer, he had 3 posts sticking out. On every post, there is always one pigeon whose one leg is tied up on a string, where others sit on the post platform or fly freely. I know that some of them after cannot walk, I guess due to the trauma to their legs. My neighbor also marks them by painting their wings with different colors. Every day he was flying his birds and feeding them outside, leaving the rest of the food outside, and by doing that, attracting rats to live here. By feeding rats, he was also trying to protect pigeons from them so they will not eat his birds, because once he also told me that something ate his pigeon. When they fly, they leave their feces over my fence, flowers, roof, and my property. On the top of it, when he cleans the pigeon coop, he leaves all the dirt, the feces, the feathers, the broken pigeon eggshells, all over his front and backyard. When the wind blows, it goes into my property. I heard that pigeon feces are health risk due to different bacteria. After all, they call them also flying rats. At first, he had only few birds, but now he probably has 40 to 50 of them in that shed. Since I know that pigeon eggs shells, I believe he's also breeding them during the winter months when temperature is going very low, or when the city inspector come in, he's hiding them in his basement. Our huge concern are rats running on my and his backyards. Over my vegetable garden in the past summer, we also found rats' feces inside our barbecue, and we have not been able to do barbecue last summer. I believe this is a huge health hazard. Now, in the winter, I also found rat traces in front of yard as well. I believe we have an infestation of rats due to the pigeon farm. We spoke to few of our neighbors, and they also noted the rats' holes, and in their backyards. The neighbor who shared the same house with the owner with pigeon coop, he's afraid to open their backyard door because they're afraid of rats coming into their house. Another neighbor had a rat inside their house already, which took them a long time to cut after plenty damage he did. I had to purchase ultrasonic rodent repellent in order to protect my house from spreading these rats into my home. Since we are sharing the house with them, I live in a semi-detached house. One neighbor already threw out their barbecue in the last spring since they also found rats' feces inside. We do not have extra funds to spend on a new barbecue, which will be covered with rats' feces the next day. I understand that my neighbor likes his birds. He even told me once that he brought some pigeon eggs from his country. He takes part in different competition of flying these birds. But in my opinion, a small city backyard is not a place for such a hobby. Brampton is called a flower town, and we should keep our city in good standards. I paid a huge amount of money for my house, and I'm still paying a high property taxes. And now I cannot enjoy my backyard or use my barbecue, or afraid that one day I will have rats inside my house. How can I have people over during summer months? The smell of the pigeon feces is terrible, especially during hot, humid days. I think this behavior of our neighbor is very disrespectful to other people who live in the same area, knowing that the pigeons are attracting rats. He continues with his hobby and has done nothing to help with the rat infestation problem, even though he and his family are aware of the rats. He also told us during past summer that he doesn't care about our concern or our losses. I believe if he would like to have such a hobby, he should live in a farm, away from nice houses. After all, we live in a residential area, not a farm community. Not to mention, according to Government of Canada, pigeons may pose a health hazard to general public and have been associated with a variety of diseases, including histoplasmosis and cryptococcosis. Histoplasmosis is a disease caused by a fungus that grows in pigeon droppings and is carried by the wind, causing respiratory illness. Cryptococcosis is also fungal disease related to pigeon droppings and grows in soil, which compromise human immune system. In addition, the buildup of pigeon feces on buildings and other structures is visually unappealing, and it's made worse by the fact that pigeon droppings are very acidic and erode metal and stonework. According to some articles, pigeon problem may not inconvenience at the moment, but with a few instances of the diseases reported each year. But as our climate changes and more pathogens are able to survive, it may well.
Just as a protocol, because usually it's 5 minutes max, so I need a mover to allow her to go beyond time. Councillor Singh, so you can go. Sorry. It's just we need to approve anything over 5 minutes. So
Okay.
You can proceed.
Can I proceed?
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
Okay. But as our climate changes and more pathogens are able to survive, it may well be a major concern in the future. With this in mind, authorities actually are thinking of new ways to combat this rising pigeon population. Actually, in some cities, a reintroduction of falcon is underway as natural predator. They call the population and also encourages dispersal into smaller groups away from human habitation. I hope you could hear us and help us with this huge problem and our worries, and will not approve the permit for Brampton residents to have pigeon coops in any Brampton areas. Our neighbors, so if you see the picture, he removed the cage, but the shed is still there and the pigeons are still there. And this is a letter that was kind of wrote with the comments of all the or majority of the Luara Crescent residents that face this problem on an everyday basis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now have our next person, Harpreet Grewal.
Hello, everyone.
My name is Harpreet Grewal. I live in Brampton like last 26 years. We've been flying with this club about last 15 years. And I've been member about many years with this club. I already love the pigeons. Also really enjoy my training in summertime. And we win a lot of trophies with our club when we raced. Please also the bylaw to be changed to 20 feet so we can properly build our house to train our pigeons along with our rest of our members. I always clean my coop every week twice last 20 years. So I've been never have a complaint in our neighbors. Like we have 4 or 5 clubs in Toronto. All members, when we raced, we invite from outside, like Europe, USA. A lot of people came here, see our hobbies and trainings. So I never have a problem, this kind of. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Now, Karandeep Kumbo, please come forward.
First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. And my name is Karandeep Campbell. I live in Brampton from last 10 years. Just my concern is that because when I grew up, I just saw pigeon in front of me. So, you know, it's like not a hobby. We live with these pigeons, you know, like when we came from our jobs and all stuff, we just go straight to in our coop, so we can like a little bit stress leave, right? So like it's gonna be good if you guys can keep that 20 feet for the coop, so anybody can enjoy their hobby. And like my fellow members said that like lots of disease our pigeons are 100% clean. So like as a club member, we just force our like members to keep the coop clean, so everybody can live well in their neighborhoods. And I'm living in Brampton for about 10 years. I don't have any complaint about my pigeons and all coop. And at least like one of my neighbor, he just said that I will love to happy if my kid's gonna have a hobby like that instead to go in pub and club and drink there and fine, right? So just want to say again thank you. And like our pigeons are not like flying on the sheds and on the neighbor's roof, right? It's just like a proper training and all stuff. We just keep the bird clean with lots of vitamins and mineral and stuff. And every member is here almost like spending lots of money on them, so to keep the clean and just keep the bird healthy. So just I'm gonna request the council members to just keep that distance to 20 feet, so we can make a better coops for the next season. Thank you very much. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much. Okay, as I see that there are no further delegations, you can sit down now if you'd like.
Thank you.
We'll bring up Councillor Singh, do you have questions of the delegations? Okay, so at this time, members of the committee will move up staff the associated staff report item 10.1. So I have Councillor Singh on the board. My apologies. Yes.
Thank you. So I had opportunity to read the report, and first of all, I want to thank staff for all the work that you put into it, and I want to thank the residents for coming out as well. Just for council's knowledge, last meeting we didn't have enough time on the agenda, and so I'd say more people came than this last time, and they were very professional and they couldn't wait, and now they're taking out another evening to attend today, and today we're discussing it. I don't think we're talking about the legality of pigeons or whether pigeons should be allowed. We're just talking about setbacks, and I don't think it's an outrageous request to move from 25 feet to 20. So I do have an amendment to the motion as well that I'd like to propose to move it to 20. Most of the individuals I've had the opportunity to meet are very professional, really care about their pets. If I can talk from personal experience, I've yet to have a pigeon coop complaint. I've had numerous dog complaints. And I was looking at the complaints in the report as well, and I see that we've been actually getting a reduction. We only had 15 in 2019. It would be interesting to see pigeon complaints, dog complaints, and other pets. Having said that, I don't want to be dismissive of the individuals who had a negative experience, and I think that appropriate channel would be to contact your counselor, because that's something I would definitely look into. Those pictures were definitely concerning, and that would definitely, I would advocate on your behalf. So I would recommend, and then I'll come out and meet you after to connect you with your counselor, who can definitely help maneuver this situation. But having said that, I don't know if one one issue, pigeon issue, paints the rest for everybody else. But I think I'll reach out and I'd like to address some of the issues that were definitely brought up because they do concern me as well. But anyways, this is the motion, looking at moving it from 25 to 20 feet. And thank you to staff, and thank you for everybody who came to delegate today.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Singh. So members of the committee, we are now speaking to a motion which has been moved by Councillor Singh. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I was just going to ask if Councillor Singh would mind holding that until we have the two speakers, if we can ask questions about other things. Okay.
Okay, so duly noted.
Thank you very much, Councillor Singh. First question to staff. I saw, oh, there's Kathy there. What, do we have a limit on the number of pigeons that a person can own?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can probably respond on behalf of Kathy. The number of pigeons is regulated in the animal control bylaw, but it's 40 in the non-racing season, up to a maximum of 60 during racing season. Yeah. And all pigeon coops must be licensed by the city as well.
Okay.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, any person wishing to keep more than 2 pigeons is required to obtain a license, and it's laid out within the bylaw as Elizabeth commented. So for the racing pigeons, typically they're permitted, as she said, 40 pigeons in the off season and 60 in the racing season. And the bylaw also speaks to the ability of the pigeon owner to be permitted to fly their pigeons twice a day for those situations. So, you know, we're not talking about 2 or 3 pigeons in the yard.
Okay. Do we get calls to go and investigate illegal pigeon coops?
Absolutely, we do, and it's a bit difficult based on our software application to weed out all of those specific calls related to pigeons, but certainly in talking to staff over the past months while this has been coming up, the majority of people that we get complaints about is related to the way they're being kept. And once we're in attendance, because they don't meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw, typically they end up reducing their numbers to come into compliance with the maximum of 2 without a license. And so that seriously curtails the need for the licenses. We currently only have 8 licenses issued in the city.
8 licenses for legal pigeon coops?
Yes.
8.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So we've got a lot of, any estimate on how many, this is going to sound funny, but illegal pigeon coops?
No, sorry.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we're reactive in that regard, so when we get complaints, we go out and address the situation. And as I said, we're finding that when people realize that because of the zoning requirements for the setbacks, their lot isn't going to meet the requirement in order for them to locate a coop appropriately, then they choose to reduce their numbers.
Okay, and we came back with a recommendation from staff to decrease the setbacks to 25.
It's already 25 in the bylaw. What we did was we came back with a recommendation to have that not apply to the home of the owner of the pigeons. It currently, as it's written, applies to any dwelling place, so they have to be at least 25 feet from any dwelling, including the home of the pigeon owner, the pigeon keeper themselves. So we've come to an amendment, and as you will have seen in the report, Brampton really is one of the least restrictive currently with respect to the setbacks that are required.
Okay, and is there, in the setback that we've got, when we go and we look at a pigeon coop and we measure the setback, it's based on setback from all sides? Okay. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it is. So not only does the structure need to meet the setbacks from the property line, which is still at 2 feet from the property line for the pigeon coop itself, then that coop from all sides must be a minimum 25 feet from anybody's dwelling as it stands today. We are proposing, as Kathy suggested, to reduce that setback to provide some flexibility for the homeowner's own property, for the keeper of the pigeons, to reduce the setback.
Okay, and was there a reason or why it was set at 25 when this bylaw was put in place? Was there research done that says 25 feet is the best, or was that just a number?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there certainly was at the time, and this is kind of a carryover back in 2008, where the provision for setbacks transitioned from the animal control bylaw into the zoning bylaw, because we are in fact regulating the structure. It was felt to be most appropriate to regulate through the zoning bylaw. So there was some benchmarking done at that time, and certainly consistent with the benchmarking that's done today. Brampton is certainly among the most flexible. Only, I think it's Oshawa that allows it to be any closer than 7.6 meters, and they allow it to be 7 meters from a property line.
Okay, so I guess this information is on our website somewhere for all pigeon, because I'm surprised we've got so many people here, but we only have 8 licenses. Can I ask what the penalty is if they're found to be without a license?
So that's something that would be determined by the courts. It's a bylaw infraction, so the Provincial Offences Act provides for penalties up to $5,000. Typically, those are not levied, particularly in respect of something similar to this. So I couldn't speak to what the courts would levy. It would depend if there was past history, which typically we don't have. We haven't laid a lot of charges, as I said. Most people choose to come into compliance because they're not going to meet the zoning requirements.
Okay, last question. Does any of the regional councillors, if they can help me out with this, I don't know. Is there regional guidelines as far as health concerns of pigeons and proximity to people at all?
To the best of my knowledge, there isn't any regional guidelines, but to echo the comments made by one of the delegates, yes, there are human health concerns related to pigeon feces, and they are born on the wind, so it doesn't matter if you actually, are the one disposing of the pigeon feces. Then if you're a neighbor, then it's disturbed and the wind can carry those fungus and parasites. The bylaw does provide for restrictions and regulations as to how the quarters of any animal housing are to be kept, which includes keeping the food in containers that don't allow for rodents, etc. But when we get complaints, not surprisingly, it's because people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that's when we end up getting involved.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Councillor Vicente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question to staff. How easy is it for council to change the setbacks in a bylaw like this? Can it be done yearly, at will, at any point in time? Is there a minimum time that we would have to keep this bylaw in place?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Not to my knowledge, no, but any amendment to the bylaw, any future amendment, much like this one, would require a public process, including back to public meeting.
Okay. Because I think it's important for us all to recognize that when we amend bylaws or change them, usually it's to improve them and to make the bylaws meet the requirements of residents more closely. So we have here a group of residents who have come to the city to ask for some changes that will make it easier for them to enjoy their hobby. I like pigeons as much as anyone else, and I certainly respect the enthusiasm and the passion that the residents have here. But I think it's important for the residents who enjoy this hobby to realize and to recognize the importance and the responsibility that you have as you enjoy your hobby. So we may make this change today, and if all works well and all is as you have said it can be, then everything will work out. But if we start to see an increase in the number of complaints, or we see an increase in the number of problems, then we may be compelled to reverse the changes or perhaps even make them more restrictive. So I think that that's an important partnership between people and city and bylaw to make sure that everything works for the benefits of all. One thing that one of the delegates mentioned was the idea of these tournaments, and these tournaments that are held in other cities and other municipalities. I think, speak for everyone here, we would love to see one of those held here in Brampton. That sounds pretty exciting. And if we can get you guys to organize that, to have those held here in Brampton, I think that would be very good, and helps to educate people about why your hobby is just so so worthy of the passion that you have demonstrated here in all the meetings. So I wait to hear any further comments from members of council, but I will support the motion, including the amended one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vicente. Councillor Fortini.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions to Kathy through the chair. I noticed that we're doing the same thing as London. So how long is the racing season?
I believe it's April through October-ish.
Okay, so I look at the other municipalities, and they don't have the difference in number between what you could have race. So if you're allowed 40 and 60, what do they do with the extra pigeons after, the other 20?
That's a question you would have to pose to the club members.
So you're allowed 40 in the racing season, 60. So when it comes to not the racing season, what do you do with the other 40 pigeons? So you're end up with 60 now.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Thank you. If you would like, but I appreciate it. Okay.
Because I'm looking at Mississauga and everyone, they have a certain number that's that they don't have the difference.
I've seen other bylaws that typically allow for an increase in the numbers through the racing season as well. So it's not unusual.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Willens.
Thank you. I'm assuming, or maybe staff hasn't, but have they come out, so looking at these pictures that Agnieszka, is that how you pronounce it, sent in, I don't think this homeowner is complying to our current bylaw anyway, regardless of the change of the setback.
I would suggest you would be correct, sir.
Yes, and the care of the pigeons is nothing. Like I've been to a couple pigeon coops, and there was one in Council Pelletier and I's ward in 2015, I think it was. Rick came with me, and I think Elizabeth, you were there. And somehow we got the person to comply. We went there, and literally you could probably eat in these pigeon coops. It was so clean. And there was no complaints from the neighbors about the pigeons themselves. So I was pretty shocked when I saw this picture, because that certainly doesn't represent the ones that I've seen that actually, that gentleman was licensed, I believe, Rick, was he not? I think he was.
He was not at the time, through you, Mr. Chair, he was not at the time licensed, but did ultimately get a variance for the location of the coop and then followed through.
And his pigeons were all registered as well.
His pigeons, following the licensing, yes, were legally registered.
And I visited the site when he was flying the pigeons, and he actually only allowed 2 birds out at a time. And he would allow them to come in, and then he would allow 2 more to fly. So it wasn't an issue, but I'll tell you, it certainly didn't look anything in these pictures. So I don't know, did you visit the site yet, or are you planning on intending to visit the site? Because
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have the information as to what that address is, and with all due respect, I'm not out on the road regularly. So I can't speak to whether or not we've received a complaint. I'm certainly going to connect with the residents.
Maybe we can try to find through the delegate the said address and maybe go looking at it from our zoning and stuff, because this, just for the comfort of the delegates that spoke against the pigeons, this is not indicative of what I've witnessed. This certainly, I would be in the same shoes as you if I saw this in my backyard, absolutely, 100%.
Through the chair, just to we get complaints because of places like that. So
Yes,
that's what
okay.
we see.
Okay, all right, very good. And as far as the property line, maintain the property lines, I'm still a little bit not sure if I could change the distance, but it is the occupant we're talking about, not other buildings, so I'll think about it, but this certainly, we should certainly look at this for sure.
Yes.
This is not good.
If I
Thank
may
you.
make one comment through you, Mr. Chair, just in that regard, in reducing the setbacks and then the potential of increasing them at a future date, I do want to note that any established pigeon coop that becomes licensed during the period that the reduced setbacks apply will be grandfathered and then legal non-conforming and able to continue
So
receiving license
anyone that we've
based on the rules
so the ones
that you
we've
may
corrected
impose
or
today.
the ones that we've dealt with in that and they've complied by licensing and have made a few amendments, they'll be fine.
That's correct, yeah. As will any that, if they meet the requirements, if you were to reduce it today down to the 6.1 meters that's now being requested and 20 feet as put forward in the motion by Councillor Singh, those that are now legally established under those set of rules and guidelines will continue to be permitted, even if council should at a future date increase the separation distances again.
Okay, perfect. So we'll
Okay.
look into this then. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Willens. Members of the committee, before we go on to consider the motion moved by Councillor Singh, we do have an additional request to delegate by Mr. Jermaine Chambers. So I will take a vote to see if we approve or not an additional delegation. All in favor of the additional delegation? Raise your hand so I can see. Need to count, folks. Okay. Please come forward. State your name for public record, and you have 5 minutes.
Sorry, Jermaine Chambers. I don't necessarily want to delegate. I just had a quick question. Earlier when the first person was delegating, she had asked for a show to see the amount of club members who are here. I'm here, I'm just curious to see, based on the challenges that I have been brought to my attention, I'm just curious to see how many persons here actually live on our own residences on Luella Avenue who may be impacted by this. So I just want to ask if that's possible, if I could ask to see.
Well, again, you could ask, but people don't have any obligation to answer.
Okay, so may I see those who actually own residences on Luella Avenue where this challenge is? Could you stand so we see how many residents? Let's see how many residents. Stand? Can you stand? Can you stand? No?
Okay.
Only two persons residents. Okay. Nobody owns residences on Luella who are here? Okay, all right. That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you. Sorry? No. I wanted to ask how many persons here actually own residences on Luella? How many owners of property? Do you have a home on Luella?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Delegates need to address the remarks to the committee through the chair, not to the audience.
Through Mr. Chair, I just wanted to find out if how many persons represented here today in the audience are actually home owners or property owners on Luella Avenue, Crescent.
Okay, so I guess your point being, so for any folks in the audience, just to clarify, the delegation is requesting or is asking if there are property owners, homeowners who are here tonight amongst the group who are supporting, I guess, part of the Pigeon Club of North America. So that's a rhetorical question. If anyone wants to respond, up to you. But is there any further comment?
I just wanted to just point out that, I think that, as property owners in the city, people have a right to really enjoy their properties. I also respect the right of, the members of the club to really enjoy their hobby. But I also think that, as a council, you also have a responsibility just to ensure that you're also finding that delicate balance between ensuring that people can really enjoy their hobby, as well as homeowners, enjoying the use of their property, as well as, homeowners protecting the value that is within their property. Because looking at these pictures, if I was to buy a property, I wouldn't want to go somewhere where I'm seeing these images, where I'm seeing, these birds. I grew up on a farm. There were pigeons around. But as I say, it was a farm. There was tons of land all around, so we weren't impacted as it is in this setting. So I would also encourage you, as you consider changes to the bylaw, to make sure that residents can really enjoy their property. At the same time balancing it with others who want to enjoy the sport. Because I was pretty concerned when I saw these features as well. So that's a delicate balance I'm asking you to try to strike to make sure residents really enjoy their property as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Palashi, question on the delegation? No. Okay, so I'll move the motion. Is it regarding the report, or can we move the motion ahead?
I'd like to
Ask your questions before. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to ask our first delegate, the one who came on behalf of the group, just to come down and answer a question, if that's okay with the committee.
Yep.
No, I'm not asking that. Thank you. I wanted to inquire a little bit more into the, I guess Councillor Vincente was talking about the opportunities for the racing, the members that currently are in the group, and how many members currently in the group live in Brampton?
All of them. Because it's
How many members do you have?
there's, I don't know the exact amount, but probably over 200, and that's just this club. That's just the Flying Tippler Club. But there are so many other clubs as well. Obviously, that's how the tournaments happen, right?
Also
Through competition.
in Brampton? Or in surrounding?
Honestly, my dad would know better. GTA? Okay.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Is that it? Oh, okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I get the number of licenses we currently have in Brampton for the operation of pigeons?
8.
We have 8. New this year?
Sorry, the year, through you, Mr. Chair, for the license actually runs from April 1st to March 31st. So we currently have 8, which will expire at the end of March of this year.
And are the licenses on a yearly rotation?
Yes.
And I noticed one of the charts in here, the numbers kind of, they fluctuate?
A little bit, yeah. We had a number that chose not to submit an application for renewal last year.
And do we verify if they have, if they're keeping pigeons still?
We have done that, yes.
And are they keeping pigeons still?
Some of them, yes.
Do we have a set fine for somebody that doesn't have a license to operate?
Not a set fine, no. It would be a summons to court for an appearance on associate proceedings.
When was the last communication that we sent out to groups in and around Brampton that we know of to try and get them to license their pigeon coop?
We don't typically send information to groups. We do actually have a staff member that's very engaged in this hobby himself. So he has ongoing communications with the groups because that's his personal hobby as well.
Okay, so as so I guess as a counselor, I would like to, and I would support maybe this member to maybe reach out to, if there's an opportunity to reach out to the groups and hopefully try and engage them a little bit and try and encourage more members from groups across Brampton to set up the license.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Palashi. At this time, if we can bring up the motion, our City Clerk. We have a motion by Councillor Singh. Are there any questions or comments regarding the motion? No? Okay, so we will now vote on this item. So we have the motion as is. Do members of the committee need some time to read this? No? Okay. So all in favor of the motion moved by Councillor Singh? All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you very much. And can I get a motion to receive the delegations moved by Councillor Singh? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. And receive all the correspondence. Okay, thank you. Our next item, so I will give a couple minutes for those. We just deliberated on the pigeon coop. If you would like to leave or we're going to proceed, so I would ask you, I'll give you a couple minutes and we'll hold off for a couple minutes so you can leave the chambers. That's a good one. How do you identify the structure?
I'll be right back.
One, two, three, four, five. Yep, we got quorum. So if there's approximately 200 members and it's 40 pigeons, we got like probably 1,000 pigeons kicking around there. Yeah. Okay, members of committee, we have a delegation now regarding item 5.2, Master Plans and Development Review Timelines. I will invite Sylvia Roberts to come forward for the delegation.
Hello, my name is Sylvia. Can I have 5 minutes more?
Okay, moved by Councilor Plush. All in favor?
Thank you.
Carried.
So,
Okay.
this term of council, in your term of council priorities, you've talked about redoing and revisiting a number of master plans, such as your transportation master plan and the official plan, which I believe the review launch is Wednesday next week. So here is this is part of the current transportation master plan. This is for what we see to 2030. As you'll notice on Main Street, we envision rapid transit all the way to Mayfield and one additional Zoom line in addition to what we currently have on Bramalea. This is from the 2018 to 2022 Brampton Transit 5-year plan. This was passed at the end of 2017. The active transportation plan was 2015. So in 2 years, we've actually added a Zoom line that wasn't even envisioned by 2030, and Bramalea has been shifted later. And hopefully we will be able to get the Main Street extension for the Zoom line, which I'm sure the councilors for wards 2 and 6 would appreciate. So it's in a 2-year period, there's already been substantial change. It's a case of with the way Brampton has been growing, especially transit ridership, growing much faster than population, our master plans need to be revisited more frequently. And so we have, even our business plan for Brampton Transit, 5-year plan was obsolete in 1 year. So in planning, you have what the developer wants to do and what the city wants the developer to do. Generally, there's reasons for the developer wants to do stuff, and staff generally has pretty good points on why. So here's depicted 2 lines. On the left is what the developer would like to do in the absence of rules. On the right is what the city wants it to be done. So if it's easier to do one, they're going to pursue that. So the city starts putting in hurdles, more hurdles, it keeps going on, and then you wind up with our current zoning bylaw, which is a congealed mess that is, it's a mess. So here we have our official plan, which is dated. We know we've been working on redoing it's supposed to be redone every 5 years, I believe. We've been working on redoing it since 2012. It's 2020 now. So this, for example, is where hotels are permitted. The official plan says by a 400 series highway. We sort of have 2. We have the 410, which runs down the middle, and the 407, which is down along the edge. Here I've highlighted in red where the 400 series highways are. You'll notice that Mississauga has dramatically more, and if you look at U.S. cities, they also have not that many highways, or actually more. So the policy looks like it's been copied from somewhere else and hasn't been kept up to date. On the copy, I believe you've gotten, I have speaker's notes, and it actually shows that the province has introduced new regulations. So I know you've all been looking at where can you find resources for finding funds in addition to property tax. One of these is the municipal accommodations tax. You can pass a tax on on accommodation stays, but our rules actually substantially limit it. It's a case of, is there a particular reason why a hotel wouldn't make that much sense near Bramalea City Center, for example? It's probably a bit too far to be counted as close to the highway, but is there a particular reason why not? There's a number of places that might make sense. Its policies just have not been kept up to date. So some of the issues are, this is from issues, the senior housing study. It's a case of, I looked at it and it's fairly limited. It's basically on what kind of institutional situations can we put seniors in, which seemed a very strange premise. I looked at the actual council motion, and for that I was like, why? The answer is our official plan only really considers a institutional type residence for seniors, and this may be more active living, but it's that kind of use. My family is South Asian. They came to Canada in 1969, so we're fairly westernized. I believe my family has been speaking English since Queen Victoria and is Catholic, so on the westernized scale, fairly. So my grandmother has moved into Amica. She's actually quite happy there. But when other South Asians find out that my grandmother is there, they react towards my mother as if she is abusing her. In South Asian cultures, and in some Mediterranean cultures, it's seen as that the family is supposed to take care of the parents, and so the entire concept of putting your elders in a institutional use is basically seen as morally repugnant and elder abuse. Even my grandmother's actually quite happy where she hasn't decided to be there. So in planning school, it focuses on theory, and that's very important, but some of the issues are cartographic. This is the transit stops by census tract. If you act transit, they would never use this. So the issue isn't specifically the planners, it's that there needs to be existing data. So you have a map that shows good transit, and it's actually available on GeoHub. One of your term of council priorities is open data. This would make sense. These departments are excessively siloed in the city, and the planning department touches on pretty much all of them. Economic development wants a hotel, you need to get planning on board for changing official plans. You want to make sure transit's considered to have you properly integrated, you need to discuss with transit to make sure that is appropriately integrated. For example, if you're redeveloping a mall. There's other issues. So this is a data issue. So the city conflates multi-family and multi-generational households. I'm sure the councilors for 910 know those are quite different. For those who are not familiar, multi-family is considered when there's more than 2 census families there. So for example, you have a nuclear family and then the husband's brother's family. That is a multiple census family household. If you have a nuclear family and then one of the couple's parents are there, that is an extended family, it's still a census family. In most cities, this does not matter. And then there's Brampton. So this is the 10 highest by percent of multi-generational households. Brampton is at 14%. That's 40% higher than the next highest one. You'll notice 7 through 10 are at 4%, or at 14%. That's quite a difference. If you look at the percent of the population, that's 25%. So we're neglecting huge portions of the population, and if we look 5-10 years down the road, there's a good chance most of the seniors will be South Asian. So if you're just looking at institutional uses, something that's functionally morally repugnant to half of your population, you're fundamentally failing them. This isn't the planning department's issue. The planners haven't done anything wrong. It's what's currently existing. All of your, this is, I believe it was last year that it was passed. It's obsolete. It was obsolete before it was even passed because what it's based on is obsolete. Some of your bylaws are so far out of date, it's probably violating the Constitution. Here you have separation distance of 305 meters for lodging houses. 305 meters is a very strange number until you realize it's exactly 1,000 feet, which means this rule is probably from the 80s or earlier and just got turned into metric. The Ontario Human Rights Commission believes that separation distances are a form of people zoning. Any registered professional planner would know you definitely cannot do this. It is in Bell v. R. It was found that it violated the Canadian Constitution. Not the Ontario Human Rights Code, which is legislation, but the Constitution itself. And yet we still have this in our code. This is kind of a problem to have the city violating human rights given that council unanimously voted to condemn Quebec for violating human rights, I'm sure we can all vote, you can all vote to ensure that the city of Brampton complies with human rights. So what I would like is, so this is just for the policy side of planning, report back on the list of all major projects, including but not limited to the official plan review, comprehensive zoning bylaw review, master plans, etc. Come up with the status of these. Most of these have actually been identified in your term of council priorities as needing to be redone. So a status update on these, making it open to the public and finding out what needs to be done in order to bring these up to date. Some of the issues we've had are the metrics we're using to judge things don't actually work very well. For example, term of council priorities is percent of population near major transit station areas. The city has very little control over that. Instead, coming up with what is good transit, talking with transit, and making this publicly accessible. We've won awards for GeoHub. Make sure it's updated. The public information centers have been held early in the day, which makes it not very accessible to most of the population. You voted to be inclusive. Staff needs the resources to make the thing, what the city is doing, inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Councilor Vicente.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if this is appropriate time for this question, but I was wondering if staff have any comment.
Okay, Councilor Vicente, per usual, you've given the hot potato over to staff, and I'm not sure if staff would have any comment or simply make note of this. I guess with the delegation, if I'm understanding correctly, you're requesting our committee direct the planning department. Is that correct?
It's, I'm not sure if it's going to be direct specifically. I know that the city council meeting is where you do that. So I'm not sure exactly what the process is, but it's basically have staff give you a report and update on the projects under them.
So my understanding is, again, and I'll let staff intervene, but I can assure you that on the master plans, on any major sort of timelines, we do get update regularly at committee and at council. But I will
how would a resident
pass
find
it off
out?
to our staff. Alan, would you like to take a stab, or would you like to speak maybe offline to the delegation to just maybe inform how we sort of keep council abreast on all these moving parts? I'll go ahead, Bob.
Thanks, through the chair. So the staff, we have had an opportunity to sit down with the delegation and provide some additional background, so we've gone through that. I think as you indicated, we do have some a variety of reporting mechanisms for the status of various reviews underway. Things have become a lot more active in the last year or two. So we do have, I think most of the ones on this list are underway now, and certainly the official plan, comprehensive zoning bylaw review, most of the master plans are on track to be done before the end of this term of council. One of the things that is underway right now is a comprehensive review of the planning department, the operations and the focus for the department. And this is certainly an element of that review to make sure that as we do have a lot of plans, some of them are very old, secondary plans, as well as the zoning bylaw itself. It has been a long time since we've updated these. And we want to make sure that we have a program in place to regularly update and keep current these things. So it's not as much individual projects, but this will become more of a regular program. So calculating what those resources are, how we change the regulatory framework so it's a little easier to update, all those things are elements that are being looked at through the review of the planning department, through the renewal project. And those recommendations and that approach will be done by likely the middle of this year.
Yeah, and thank you very much for that. And I would just probably, in addition, as we're entering our budget exercises, I know our Commissioner, Richard Ford, has mentioned, that consideration as well to meet all these demands, that consideration regarding resources. That also will be part of the exercise going forward. I don't know, Alan, certainly if you want to mention something along those lines, but.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. And just maybe a quick reference to development planning, as I understand that Sylvia was wanting to speak to as well. In that respect, staff are going to be coming forward with the improvements that we're looking to make to our processes, as well as the continual improvements to the implementation of our development tracking software system, where through both initiatives, we believe that we're going to be finding efficiencies to help us with timelines and meeting the new legislative timelines, and together with budget requests that will be coming forward to council as well. So yes, staff is cognizant of the fact that we need to strive towards meeting these new legislative timelines, and we'll be approaching committee with respect to improvements that we're making to allow us to be able to do that with respect to the budget items as well.
Thank you. Are you okay with that, Celia?
It's just, how do residents know what is going on with all the master plans? For example, the Queen Street BRT, I think the last update on that is from more than a year ago. And I mean, the first link on your main page, I showed Councillor Bowman, it leads you to a page that clearly has not been updated because it shows the 2009 Transportation Master Plan. Our last one's from 2015, which means it's at least 5 years old since it's been touched. And that's the first link on your, I think it's plans and studies. So council might know, but residents, it's very difficult for residents to find out, and one of the term of council priorities is open data so that residents can find out what's going on in the city.
So I thank you for that. Yeah, and I will say with our CAO, you know, he's brought that forward as well to ensure our links on our website are not dormant or are updated, and certainly not just pointing to the planning department, but I think as a municipality we can do a better job from ensuring that our documents are timely and they're up to speed. But we thank you for keeping our feet to the fire. And I guess at this time, do I need a motion to receive delegation? Moved by Councillor Bowman. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Our next item now is 5.3, and I will welcome Kevin Montgomery and Stephen Laidlaw to come forward and discuss the 2019 report from the Cycling Advisory Committee and looking ahead into 2020.
Lovely. Okay. Good evening, committee. So through the chair, I'm Kevin Montgomery, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Cycling Advisory Committee. And Steve.
I'm Stephen Laidlaw, the other co-chair.
So we're going to give you a very quick, high-level update of what we've accomplished through the Cycling Advisory Committee for 2019 and what lies ahead in 2020.
So it was a shortened year for us because we didn't get started till later in the year. But one of the things we did was a bike valet plan at the Farmers Market at the Four Corners and Canada Day. We had 76 residents utilize the valet, and best of all, they talked to us and we updated them on things. Our big thing is community rides, and we had Kevin tracked approximately 120 unique participants registered online for the 2019 community rides. The thing about these numbers is there's much more participation than that would indicate, because people like it so much that they come back to a number of rides while only signing up once on the city site. So we did have a lot of riders out there. I will encourage councillors to check their schedule for the 2020 rides, because it's the best way to meet your constituents and see your ward from a different perspective. Kevin attended the Region of Peel Bicycle Friendly Intersection Workshop. He reported back to us. And our big take this year, or the past year, was that we actually have an active transportation plan now, which will make us focus more on what we have to do as a committee, because it outlines certain things and the direction we're going.
Which brings us to 2020. So some of the things we'll be looking at through 2020 is a bicycle-friendly bylaw review, strategies for reaching out to businesses to improve active transportation experience in those scenarios. We're going to be looking at a strategy for increased outreach for our community rides to get those numbers even higher this year. We have a representative for the Vision Zero Education and Awareness Working Group happening at the Region of Peel, and we've already started providing input on the Active Transportation Charter. So that concludes our presentation. So hopefully you're inspired to come out to the community rides this year, and we'll take any questions that you might have for us.
Well, thank you for really showing leadership and effectiveness and efficiency. So I will certainly have here on board Councillor Santos.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, thanks for coming in for an update on the Cycling Advisory Committee and your ideas and plans. Quick question about the community rides. Do they also happen throughout the winter, or are they specific to spring, summer, fall?
No, they're operated specifically through spring, summer, fall.
Okay.
To maximize participation.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And as the council member on the Cycling Advisory Committee, I want to just acknowledge the work of the Advisory Committee and also continuing to advocate and push for more active transportation in Brampton. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Councillor Plushie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like to thank both of you for coming. Not too often we get delegations delegating on either the minutes or before us from a committee. So I think members of council like that. We instead of having words written on a paper of lots of papers that we have iPad that we have to read. We like having people come before us and to talk about some of the things that you've done, some of the things that you're going to do. I like to ask that you keep in mind that one of the best ride, actually the best ride in Brampton, will be coming up once again in Ward 2, I believe, Bite the Creek. So if we can just start that communication, and it does travel south into other wards, but if you can reach out and whatever we can do to continue to promote that unbelievable event, please do so as a committee.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr.
through the chair, if I could just quickly comment on that, we'll certainly pass that feedback along to the organizers who bike Brampton.
Okay, thank you very much. So as I see no more further questions or comments, I will assure you that on the portion in Ward 3 and 4, Councillor Bowe and myself will be personally there providing further refreshments for the riders to really outperform our colleagues. But this is fabulous work, and I thank you very much for coming forward. Can I get a mover, Councillor Santos, to move the delegations? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Our next item, come on down, is our manager, Yvonne Young, who's going to speak to us about urban design planning. Queen Street East Community Planning Permit System on Wards 1 and 3. And it's just for members of the committee, it's Associated Staff Report, item 7.1.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of Planning and Development Services Committee, members of public. My name is Yvonne Young. I'm the Manager of Urban Design for the Planning and Development Services Commission. I'm before you today to introduce the preliminary Queen Street East Precinct Plan, to explain how precinct plans can be used to unlock opportunities for our future citizens, businesses, and development partners, to explain how the plan provides a coordinated framework for various departments to deliver a number of term of council priorities, and lastly, to seek approval in principle to use this plan as a basis to prepare a community planning system bylaw for the City of Brampton. The details are outlined in the companion report, which is the next item on the agenda. The Queen Street East Precinct is part of a provincial designated urban growth center, an area identified by the province as a focal area for investment, employment, and residential growth. The current city official plan also recognizes this area as a primary intensification corridor and the heart for cultural, economic, and entertainment for the city. The Council endorsed Brampton 2040 vision, referred to Queen Street East Precinct as a new urban district for sustainable living that feature hip, modern living and working and a fun destination, shops, cafes, and active amenities and street level, expressive architecture, and showcase of the latest trends in green city building. This 220-acre land stretches between the Etobicoke Creek to the west and Highway 410 to the east. It covers more than 2 kilometers of the future Queen Street bus rapid transit route that connect directly to the TTC subway station at the Vaughan Metropolitan Center and to the Brampton GO, which anticipate future all-day two-way service. It also covered the future health employment cluster at the Peel Memorial Hospital Center for integrated health and wellness to the south. It also abuts the future transformative public realm at Riverwalk to the west that connect directly to downtown and to Highway 410 that is actually 15 minutes away from the Pearson International Airport. To transform the 220 acres into a vibrant mixed-use urban community, the design of the precinct is based on creating a series of walkable 20-minute neighborhoods. That is, all the essential elements like transit, parks, shopping, dining, arts and culture, and healthcare, etc., are all available within an 800-minute walking distance. The resulting urban lifestyle allows for innovation through cross-pollination and community interactions. Some successful examples include the Port Credit Village in the GTA and more recently, the District Wharf in Washington, D.C. Another critical factor to the success is that these neighborhoods, they are all developed through a precinct plan. The use of precinct plans is also supported by the city official plan, which referred to as a district design plan. Precinct plans have the proven ability to attract investment interest and diverse partnership that wasn't there before. This is because these plans establish a public realm and facing strategy that give development partners a greater sense of confidence to build. Here are some examples. So on the picture in here is the East Bayfront and Quayside in Toronto. When the precinct was first established, there were no committed investment for offices and institutional users. The plan created a transformative urban setting that prioritized the early delivery of Sugar Beach and Sherbourne Park, and also provide clear developable blocks that attract unplanned investment, such as from Chorus Entertainment, George Brown, Daniel's Artscape, and now the Quayside with Alphabet. The result is a community with more daytime population than the evening. In West Donlands, the precinct plan created the condition to deliver student housing, affordable housing, and market housing through the establishment of partnership between a variety of stakeholders, including nonprofit, post-secondary education institution, and also private developers. In Regents Park, the precinct plan provides a framework to deliver a complete mix of fine-grained users within the first phase of development. It also set the stage for a social development plan, which enabled local job training and also an ecosystem of local services and entrepreneurship. So over the last 6 months, city staff has been working with various departments and agencies to develop a preliminary Queen Street East precinct plan. This plan includes 3 new mixed-use districts. The district work together strategically to deliver a vibrant urban mixed-use community that will attract, retain, and also support healthy youth, families, and seniors. So here's a quick introduction of the district. To the west is the health-focused district, which is located close to the Peel Memorial Center for Integrative Health and Wellness. So this 12,000 population district is anchored by the existing and anticipated health and senior services, and also is designed for easy accessibility. In the middle is the family-focused district. It's a 23,000 population district which center on providing larger size units and providing safe, walkable access to a variety of amenities that respond to the intergenerational makeup of Brampton. To the west is the focus district for business activity. So building upon that, Brampton is located on the Kitchener-Waterloo Tech Corridor. This 23,000 population business hub district is centered on design provision that support 24-hour social and economic activity. And within all of these urban districts, a multi-use urban community hub will serve as anchor to position to attract and support families to move to this new area. As well, these districts are all structured within the complete community framework, which is built upon the framework for movement, living, and working. A major design feature is to use a comprehensive movement network that makes walking, cycling, riding, and transit possible as the main mode of transportation. A quick overview for walking, it includes locating schools and community facilities along a safe and unobstructed walking network, linking to a system of off-road bidirectional cycle facilities to make possible for people for all ages and abilities to travel by bike with confidence. Cycling also includes a trail network within a district-wide greenway to support climate change and to provide connection to the surrounding valleys and to enhance the value of the future Clark Avenue Extension project. Riding and rideshare includes prioritizing the location of carpool pods, secure bike storage, cafe, daycare facilities, and all the other daily essentials that is necessary to place near transit stop to make it convenient for rideshare to happen. Lastly, transit and airport access include integrating airport shuttle within the heart of the business district. Another important design features is a rich mix of amenities and places that attract and retain talents for innovation industries. Research shows that these industries thrive on informal, flexible, adaptive workspaces that create settings for business collaboration and networking at a local, regional, and international scale. We have already begun collaborating with our smart city section within the city on opportunities to locate Wi-Fi hotspots within these districts. In terms of living, knowing that jobs follow talents, the design integrates child-friendly and age-friendly features in housing and facilities to make healthy living, intergenerational living, and independent living possible for youth, families, and seniors. So these features include mixed income housing, intergenerational design housing, and co-living spaces, adaptive spaces for community gardens, home occupation, and arts and culture gathering spaces to enrich the community connections. We have also begun co-designing a made-in-Brampton solution for housing prototype with University Design Studio program with Ryerson, and also with interested affordable housing developers. The preliminary Queen Street East Precinct Plan is a product of cross-departments and agencies collaboration, building upon extensive review of relevant background, technical documents interviews, and also we sit down with members of City Council and relevant staff members that have worked on this important precinct in the past. Staff has conducted a series of consultations which include engaging the Urban Land Institute and the broader development industry through the September 10th Urbanizing Suburbia event, and also conducting a series of co-design workshops with municipal staff from various departments, including the regional appeal and also local agencies. We have also engaged with industry stakeholders and affordable housing developers to explore the possibility for collaborating to advance some of the implementation. Also, we have conducted site tours for some of the most successful mixed-use community hubs in the region. The picture shown here is the recent completion of the Canoe Landing mixed-use school project within the City of Toronto. The Public Health Office from the Regional Appeal has also shown great support for the preliminary Queen Street East Precinct Plan. Their office was also going to submit a letter of support and also making a delegation presentation at the January 22nd City Council meeting. While the implementation will require further coordination, the preliminary Queen Street Precinct Plan provides a roadmap for coordinating the delivery of a number of terms of council priorities. It also helps to advance the investment from the development industry, provide fruitful multi-sector partnership that look at innovative ways to expedite these investments. Some of the noted terms of council priorities that this plan will serve to advance include create complete community, and from our perspective, we would like to use this plan as an opportunity to serve as a template to complete all the other urban design framework study for other urban growth centers and town centers for the city, and the goal to use this to deliver the Brampton 2040 vision for the future 1 million residents as described in the vision. The second terms of council priority is to support community hub concept. A working group comprised of city departments, school boards, and agencies has been established to design and deliver these mixed-use community hub campuses, and will include public parks, schools, library facilities, urban agriculture, economic incubators, arts and culture studios, and community services hubs, among the other uses. Our goal is to complete this study by Q2 of 2020. Another important element is working collaboratively with economic development on attracting investment and employment. The goal is to attract jobs and achieve the target of 60% of our residents has the ability to work and live and play within the city. Lastly is to equalize all forms of transportation. That means adding density, prioritizing active transportation, non-auto modes of travel, and support business case for the Queen Street East BRT project. The preliminary Queen Street East precinct plan will be implemented through the development permit system, or referred to as the community planning permit system in the staff report. This system combines zoning, minor variance, and site plan control into one-step integrated process to expedite and streamline the approval process for development application. So to make this happen, consultant services is required to conduct a number of technical studies as outlined in the staff report. Staff is intended to initiate the procurement process once the preliminary precinct plan is approved by principal by the City Council. The community engagement would also inform an integral component of the project. So it is our intent to engage the broader community, which include public meetings, workshops, online and social media, and also meetings with technical advisory group of key city departments and working group. Our goal is to move forward with a status report in the Q3 of 2020 once we complete the first open house and stakeholders meetings, the consultant procurement process, and also with a preliminary drafting of the permit system bylaw. Ultimate goal is to complete the technical studies and the bylaw by Q4 of 2021. We are also working on providing a communication channel for this great initiative to report on the status and also share some of the development opportunities with the development industries as we move forward this great project. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to deliver this great project for the city.
Thank you very much. I have two members of the committee. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a number of questions to make sure that I've got everything right here. So what we've done is we've taken the 2040 vision that the council had voted on, and we had 15,000 people involved as the basis for the Queen Street corridor. That was already decided, correct? The Queen Street corridor was already there. It was already outlined in the 20. What we've done is we've compartmentalized it, we've drilled down, and we've decided that we're going to create 3 different precincts here. So far, am I on the right track?
Through the chair, yeah, largely. So the 3 different focus areas just sort of help give some guidance to some of the things that can happen in those areas. The precinct plan as a whole is what we're talking about for the whole of the area. Of course, what will happen over time is various things will develop, and it will depend on the market interest. But that helps guide our focus in terms of the things we're going to be trying to pull together for each of those focus areas.
Okay, so when we develop a permit system, or the DPS, someone takes out a permit, say they want to put up a 30-story high-rise. What does that permit mean to them? What does that permit give them?
So one of the really key elements of doing this work is actually thinking through the elements that the city needs to have in place to ensure that the neighborhoods are going to be successful. That we know where the roads need to be, the kind of volumes, the community amenities are thought through in advance. So in terms of the development permit system, the community permit system, once you go through that process, for us, that's basically allowing you to move through, rather than a rezoning and an official plan amendment, secondary plan amendments, all those sorts of things that we typically would need to do. That's rolled up in the development permit system so that we can really move straight to building permits. The point is to actually find the flexibility within there, so it's not going to be so prescriptive you can't work with it. but at the same time outlining very clearly for people what the expectations are. And as well, it'll help us understand what the public investments will need to be. And we're building on the things like transit and the other components that are there, so that once we do get the applications coming in, we'll be able to deliver that relatively quickly.
Okay, so I'm just thinking through some of the things that have happened here in the last 2 months. So somebody takes a developer takes out a permit, we go through the process, we decrease the time it takes to deliver that permit, and then we get 400 residents show up to say that is not what we want across the street from us on Queen Street. So where do we go with the permit process from that point?
Well, so one of the elements about this is as we go through this process, once the community permit system's in place, that is much more of an as-of-right process. So once the public and council has endorsed the vision overall, which will come forward at the end of the technical work, and that's, I think, Carmen's here to speak to that. That's the next phase, and that's what the report speaks to, is taking this and really making it tangible. Once that's all fleshed out in the system, once council approves that, then we move straight through without a public process on those applications.
Okay,
so that does very much help streamline the delivery of those.
Understood. But is this whole process, are we taking this to a public meeting as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. No, we will use lots of different channels for public engagement through the development, so that people are well aware of what council's expectations are, what the intended outcomes are.
Okay, and Yvonne, you mentioned an RFP will be put out, and I missed what the RFP is going to be for.
So in order to move forward with the technical studies, maybe Carmen of Development Services can talk about the rest of the process.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So as part of this whole process, this is essentially pre-zoning lands through the Queen Street corridor. And in order to do that, we need to understand something about these lands, whether it be the traffic, infrastructure, market analysis, and those types of things. So that's what the RFP process is for, is to hire some of those consultants or to look for some of those consultants that can give us some input into this process. And so that we can develop an actual plan for this.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the same question I ask in every budget process. Do we have nobody on staff that can provide us with the information to give us that detail? And if we don't have anybody on staff, is it worthwhile to hire someone to work for us to do this than to go the consultant route and pay consultant fees for this?
So one of the things that we've, I think, demonstrated is that with some additional capacity, we've taken on some contract staff through urban design to really ramp up our ability. So in 6 months, we've gone through the precinct plan process to really get to this point. The kind of services we'd be looking for are fairly specialized. So they're technical services, market analysis, and they're not the sort of positions that we would be using on an ongoing basis. For sure, as this will also involve a significant staff component. So we're going to continue to have staff as the primary drivers through the process. But what we want to make sure is we're getting the best technical input from the leaders in the industry to help us understand what we need to. But what we don't want to do is staff up to a level that we're not going to be doing that on an ongoing basis. So we're using that to kind of, as efficiently as we can, move through the process, get the expertise that we need externally, but also building the internal understanding so that when next we roll out another process like this, we've got an even better understanding of how best to work with that.
Okay, and that was my point exactly, Bob, that we're going to be rolling out multiple precincts over in the 2040 vision. So to me, it makes more sense to have an expert on staff who is going to be able to work on these projects in succession or independently in pieces as we go forward. But I'll leave that up to you guys and up to budget. And 60% live-work ratio, are we talking just for this precinct?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the 60% target is identified in the Vision 2040 document.
Yep.
So compared to the current state, which is approximately 40% of the residents are living and working within the city, and the goal is to flip that. So this is using the Queen Street precinct because of the scale, 220 acre, the amount of population, use that to demonstrate the best practices. But the goal is to apply that to other urban areas within the city.
Okay. It's a big stretch, so I hope we can do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Long anticipated, Councillor Fortini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I, is there any reason why we stopped at the 410 way and did all the Queen Street right across? For the, it's already in place, because those are where the high density should be.
For you, Mr. Chair, that is also a great point as well. So through this process, we have also moved several development applications along, including pre-consultation. There are development interests to the east side of 410. So upon consultation with city staff and various departments, we understand there is opportunity through our current system to move forward with high density application as well. And our goal is to make this precinct plans as a living document, and it will evolve through time and has the opportunity to extend and meet the market demand as well.
So when we go high density, do we have a height restriction, or we're not going to have a height restriction?
The idea of the precinct plan is to provide a clear framework. So through this planning here has also demonstrated certain locations for towers closer to 20 or 30 stories as well. And the idea is to provide the right transition and the kind of mix. So when there's a high concentration of residential density at certain location, we would like to provide the right guidance so that majority of the population, they are within very, very close walking distance to a transit stop. At the same time, knowing that there's a high concentration driven by towers, we want to make sure there's parks and community facilities very close by. So it's all drive together.
So maybe if I can hear, I know being a little bit sick. What's the height of some of these buildings, the highest ones? What do we have here?
For example, the current, there is a current application that is active. It's looking at 30 stories. So if you look, I don't know if there's a mouse in here. Is there a pointer? Maybe I can. So in the central area of the plan, there's a series of public park that is going north-south direction. Directly to the west of that, there is a graphic that's showing 3 towers. That is actually a current development application from a developer have a lot of interest to move forward with this application. The current proposal is a range of between 30 stories to 35 stories. That's our recollection. So this plan does contemplate and support the kind of urban living. The key thing is to create a catalyst so we have a contiguous mix of uses in day one. And between public facilities and also private facilities and private investment, we can provide a contiguous experience of what urban would feel like.
And most of these are the mix between residential and office and all mixed. Am I correct? Right. So my worry is, it's good, I love it. You know, you look at other municipalities, so you look at everything that went up now, like lumber, concrete cost, everything's gone up 20 points. What they're paying here per square foot, you could actually go to another city and pay almost the same. So all this stuff here, it all looks good, but the problem is we don't get the attraction for them to come and build, because it's hard to sell if you actually look at a condo. So we got to make it the height. We got to work with them, give them a little bit more flexibility, so it's convenience for them to come.
So through you, Mr. Chair, through this process, we also have consultation with the development industry as well, try to understand what are something that we can do as a city to help to give them a greater sense of confidence, and also looking at elements that traditionally they spend a lot of money on, but it's actually may not be value added, such as providing a lot of overly developed number of underground parking spaces that's actually very costly to the developer, and also at the same time it doesn't really help us to provide for the non-auto mode or transit supported lifestyle. So these are the elements that we are working very closely with development industry, and also through the development permit system process, we will have the opportunity to move forward with the review of an application, including a tower, within a very, very short period of time. So the combination of those two will be very value added to the development industry.
So part of this, we're going to look at the parking study too.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in the staff report, perhaps comment from Development Services can speak a little bit more about that. In the staff report, on page 15, I believe, there's a list of technical studies, which is also including transportation, master plan, and parking strategy. And part of that is looking at how other urban growth center within the GTA has looked at strategically capping the number, removing the minimum requirement, looking at sharing of parking spaces. So a broader strategy to use that to provide broader incentive for the development industry.
Last question. So when someone comes and puts an application in, do we as a city have the authority to say, well, this is already helping you to process a little bit faster, but you have 3 years to build, or else we go back to 0-1? Or once it's zoning, we just sit there and let others to do it? Do we have that authority to say you have 3 years to build?
So through Mr. Chair, with the initiative that we have in place that we're proposing with the community permit planning system, the zoning for all of the lands will exist. So really, it'll be up to the landowners at that point in time when they see that we've put in place sufficient mechanics for them to take advantage of all of those matters and be able to come forward with an application to take advantage of the community planning permit system at that time. They'll be able to do that. Everything will be set up for them. But the pre-zoning, as Carmen mentioned before, will have occurred. The zoning will be in place. Once it's in place, it'll remain there for the landowners to be able to utilize. If it is that they want to propose some changes to that pre-zoning, essentially, they'll be able to work with us through essentially a minor variance process. That is at a staff level, so we'll be able to work on that quickly as well. If it is that they're wanting to make some significant changes to the pre-zoning that we've put in place, then that's a matter that would have to come back through to council and go through a public meeting to be able to work through.
So these type of things are not the same as if you're building something at your home after so much expires and just revoke it? We can't do that, right?
So, through Mr. Chairman, there's no revoking of really permissions that the city and city council put in place.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, I just want to say today is a very exciting day of planning. We had the RioCan earlier, and that's going to transform our city, and I can't comment too much on it because it was a public meeting. And this is a remarkable work, and I think all the council is very excited by this project. I just had two questions. So I see there's phases outlined, phase 1, phase 2. I can't seem to hone down, and maybe just my mistake, which phase we're at right now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are at phase 1, which is the completion of the conceptual precinct plan in the staff report. At the same time, it's the equivalent of the preliminary Queen Street precinct plan that we are seeking approval in principle today.
So if we approve the phase 1 today, then that's when we go to the technical analysis, which is why we're asking for consultants, I think, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and how long is the phase 2 expected? What's the timeline on there approximately?
For you, Mr. Chair, on page 15 of the report.
I couldn't find it. Okay, page 15 has the timeline. Oh, I see it now. Okay, I was looking for that. Thank you. And lastly, I see a lot of reference to Queen Street BRT, and we just had a meeting with the CAO. Alex Bob was there as well, about the importance of the Queen Street BRT, and it really is necessary to truly unleash the potential we have east to west. It cuts through east to west. So I think moving forward, because we're supposed to have an initial business case at Metrolinx, but maybe updating them about our plans and what we're planning will illuminate why it's so important that we get this process. Because I'm seeing a population of 20-something thousand there, and we got to move those people. So could you just speak to the importance of the BRT as well?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can give you a little bit of update in terms of our consultation process. So through the last 6 months, we have been working also closely with Metrolinx staff as well.
Okay,
so they're very well aware of this planning, the location of stops, and also the anticipated ridership this can bring at the table. At the same time, our goal is to use the next 6 months to work closely with them on the actual conceptual design of what Queen Street can look like, and that can support moving the business case along and making that into a party within a broader regional network.
Okay, good. And I'm happy to hear that Metrolinx is being kept in the loop. I think that's important. So, thank you. Thank you for your work.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Plushy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just going back on the consultants and this approving this in principle, if we can just have, when it comes to budget, if we can have some other opportunities as well, in terms of what would it look like to have maybe a full-time staff member working on this, and just other options for us to choose from, rather than when we're in the world of budget, a lot of things may not really pop out at us. So if there's opportunities that we can look at, I think that would be beneficial to, because this isn't something like Councillor Bowman said. This doesn't start and stop here. This is going to be an ongoing process for the next 20 years. So.
Well, there's certainly more. I mean, part of what will come forward from the review of the planning department will be that roadmap, if you like, for all the programs we think need to be put in place. And that's really where the recommendations around the staffing complements will be. In terms of this one, I mean, we were looking at the consultants as a way to get the next stage of the work going. And we do have staff, Carmen and Michelle, who are going to be spending a portion of their time on it, as well as urban design will continue to be involved. There's certainly staff components that will be involved in delivering that. So we're really talking about the specific expertise to supplement the existing staff complement. But certainly take your point, I think getting that comprehensive picture of what's required to continue this into the future, that's absolutely going to be part of the report we'll bring forward from the review of the department.
Yeah, and I have a lot of confidence in Carmen and Michelle that they can achieve what essentially what the city wants, but other opportunities where we're not just looking at one piece of Brampton here, and you heard Councillor Fortini, why not in the east, and Councillor Willens and we're going to be talking about a lot of other areas in Brampton. So I think that when we talk about Brampton being open for business, we're ready for what's the saying now? Somebody help me. Brampton means business now. Time is now.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll now consider staff reports on point 1. Are there any questions or comments? No. Can I get a mover of the presentation and staff report recommendations? Moved by Councillor Vicente. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Our minutes were in consent. The cycling referred matters. I don't see any referred matters, but there is a link, so there's referred matters. Any questions from committee? No? Okay. We consider 10.1. We are now 13.1. Thank you, Councillor Plushy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really quickly, I wanted to pull up item 13.1-12. And as much as I support, our neighbors to the north in what they're trying to achieve here and driving the 410 up to eventually the 413, also limiting the possibility of traffic on Heart Lake Road down south through Brampton. I do have issues with the fact that they've gone a little bit south of their border into our area and expanded and eliminated some of our employment lands in the north end of Ward northeast corner, actually, of Ward 2 and northwest corner of Ward 9. These are some crucial employment lands in the areas that we represent, and so whenever I see something like this coming down from a municipality, I want to make sure that we've identified the fact that we're not okay with that. We also would like to provide our comments then, if they're providing their comments to the province on the changes that they want, but also with our support in essentially what Caledon is trying to do and drive the 410 up to the 413, because it does make sense. So I'm not sure if there was an opportunity for staff to go through this, and if they felt that it would be beneficial to bring something to council, or maybe just in the future have something coupled with another report in terms of next steps in the 413. But I really wanted to also take an opportunity to identify the fact that, you know, municipalities, in particular in the north, in Caledon, utilize a lot of our road networks. And Councillor Willens had overheard some comments coming out of Caledon that Caledon would be looking to drive Brisdale through into Caledon and some of the other roads that aren't meant for more traffic to be utilizing, as they're our roads that are the arterial roads and are going to have a lot of, we don't need the traffic on those roads. So if we're going to be looking at, you know, the future of some of these roads, take Brisdale for example, I personally would not like to see if we're going to have transit on Brisdale, and which we do, but if we're going to have it going up to Mayfield Road, I'd like to see that succeed. But I do not want to have vehicle traffic being able to come south of Caledon into Brampton. If we want to continue to have it, make sure that it's bus transportation, cycling, and active transportation, I'm okay with that. But some of these roads, and this is a serious concern, you know, all across Brampton, them coming down onto, you know, into Kennedy, and then using some of our roads that they use them as a shortcut to get through to the majors. If we want to keep them on the majors, we don't want them utilizing any of this infrastructure that we have here in Brampton. So if we can just highlight that, and also if we need to talk about or to provide any comments to the province, one is support of what Caledon is essentially wanting to do, but ensuring that that this yellowish area down at the bottom there isn't taken away from any of our employment plans. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Singh?
I want to echo similar points to Councillor Pleshy. I was made aware of this a few days ago, actually, before the agenda, and then I saw the letter in the agenda as well. And I would like something in a motion form, whether that's sending our letter ourselves, but we got to fight tooth and nail to preserve our employment lands. On my side in particular, we don't have that much, and this will be actually quite a hit. So I'd like something more tangible. So whether that includes just, I don't know if we need a report, but just drafting our own letter within you know, a reasonable time frame, and that's up to staff, whatever they say appropriate. But I think we need to have it written down, sent to the various municipalities in the province that we're not okay with our employment lands being used for these interchanges.
So through the chair, we can certainly follow up there. And I know in terms of our transportation planning group, we have had opportunities to have discussions with the consultants that have been working on this. So more at a staff level, we've certainly expressed the same position. It jumped out fairly clearly. And I'd expect, given the interest provincially in employment lands, that there's receptivity to that discussion. But in terms of putting a letter together for you to formally provide some of that input, we can certainly follow up with that.
Okay, so do you want to put a time frame?
Just for it to come back in the minutes, we'll have
okay.
have a discussion.
Sounds good. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So no direction is required. I think staff took the comments, so we'll move on then to our okay. So then a motion to receive correspondence moved by Councillor Palashi. All in favor? Carried. Now we move on to councillor question period. Are there any questions or comments? No? Okay. Public question period. Is there anyone in the public? Okay. We have no closed session tonight. The last item of business is adjournment. Thank you, members, and our city council for approval at its next regular meeting on January 22nd. And our next committee meeting is February 10th. Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Fortini. All in favor? Carried. Have yourselves a good evening.